The next thing that Karen has asked me to talk about is the top 5 Luthier Tips du Jour. And Tracy Leveque, who happens to be here today, is the composer, arranger, and performer of the original Luthier Tips du Jour theme song. So he is going to give us a little demo today. He's going to play the Luthier Tips du Jour theme song. Take it away, Tracy. You need a stool?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get him a stool. There you go. Open up a case, throw money in it.
All right.
There you go. Nice. All right.
Yeah, this is one I built a while back.
Very nice. Quick little trivia question. In what year did I start the Luthier Tips du Jour videos? And consequently, that same year was when Tracy composed that song and recorded it for me. Anybody know?
2007.
06. I don't remember. 06. That's what I was thinking.
Karen was close.
7.
2007? Nope. 2008. 2008. That's been a long time ago, huh? And I remember, I think I was driving home from the college and I called Tracy on the cell phone or something and said, hey Tracy, I got this idea, but I need some music. And like, a couple hours, he put this thing together and recorded it, sent it over. There it is.
That's awesome.
Ready to go. And it's been very popular. Over the years, I've gotten emails from people asking, hey, do you have the sheet music to that? Or, what's he doing here? And I always forward them to Tracy.
It's open C tuning, by the way.
Open C tuning. Open C tuning. All right. All right. So one of the most popular tips du jour that people ask me about is called the drill press router. Has anybody ever seen the drill press router and how that works? All right. I thought I'd do a little demo. I would like to say that I came up with this idea. I did not. It was my buddy in Brazil, Antonio Tessarin, who taught me how to build guitars. Basically, it's using a drill bit blank or drill bit stock. Okay. It's a 4mm drill bit stock, high-speed steel. I buy them in Brazil, and they come in like 4 or 5 inch lengths. People here in the States have bought them at places like MSC or Granger, places like that, and you can buy them in all different sizes. And then I guess they take that and machine it and make a drill bit out of it. What I do is I use the 4mm size, and I grind an angle on it, about twice the diameter. So the angle, or not the angle, but the actual amount of real estate on that beveled part there is about 8mm, and the diameter of this is about 4mm. And what that does, once it's chucked up in the drill press, is I can make myself a template, just like a pattern cutting bit on a router. Glue that to your piece you want to cut out and come in and just cut that out. Now the advantage to this is tight radii like this, highly decorative stuff, you can't get a router in there. If you can, it's going to want to blow out on that face grain on the outside, outfeed side. It's very dangerous. It's going to throw it out of your hands. Things can happen, right, Karen? We don't want things to happen. So what I've done is just made this little template. I usually use double side tape. I use the Turner's tape. It's pretty strong stuff. If you want to use what I've also done in the past is just lift a little portion of my template with a little dog ear on it and then screw it on there, and then you waste away those dog ears later when you're done. So I'll just place this on my template. I'm not going to do any high dollar stuff. I just got a 2x4 here that I've trued up, and we'll use that. And if you can get the tape off of there, good for you. It usually takes a little bit, and I usually just throw it on the floor so I can pick it up later, like everything else in my shop.
Just out of curiosity, what does that stuff cost per roll?
It's pretty high dollar, $15, $20. I get it at places like Woodcraft or Rockler. It's turner's tape. And, they put pieces together and put them on a lathe, so it's pretty stout. Okay.
Can you use like double-sided carpet?
You can use that as well. So anything that you can guarantee that this is not going to come off midstream. Because if it comes off, the technical term for that is bad.
You get it on the internet, you can get it at Mineo's.
Yeah. I had a student in here a couple years ago that said, hey, that's just golf club tape. You wrap around your shaft of your golf club. I don't know, I've never tried it, but he said, yeah, it's about half the price if you do it that way. So. All right, so why don't we just step over here to my drill press. I'll chuck this up and we'll show you how this is done. You don't want to run it that fast because you're running a high-speed steel shaft against a piece of wood or plastic or whatever your template's made out of, and you can melt it. If you stop, it's going to create a little indent there. So you want to keep it moving. You also want to get it, pretty high RPM. This is not a high-dollar drill press. I'm running at 3,100 RPMs. Actually, I'm going to bump it down. I'm going to go 2340 is what this thing says, just because today's Saturday instead of Sunday. If it were Sunday, maybe I'd read 3,100 RPMs.
That's hilarious.
Karen's heard all these jokes before. Shop layout, shop efficiency. So I've done one. It's up there. And the reason why I mentioned that is because you'll notice everything I have in my shop is on wheels, even some of my benches. That came from when I used to work in a very small shop. And I had what I called the tool parking lot. One little corner of my shop, and I'd stack them in there 2 or 3 deep, and then I'd call the valet guy, and he'd come and pull them out, and I'd use that one. It was good because it kept everything confined to one side of the shop for tool parking, and the other side of the shop I had one little small dust collector that I'd plug into. So it helped me work a lot more efficiently. But even to this day, I still have everything on wheels. I can move stuff around if I need to. All right, Karen, you probably want to come in here a little closer. And each one of you guys, as we work here, if you want to come in a little closer, I'm going to grab my safety glasses though. Safety first, right, boys and girls? Now, when you hone this thing, high-speed steel, you can ruin the temper on it. So make sure you have a bucket of water or something. You dip it in there periodically, keep it cool. My buddy in Brazil used to run it on a grinding wheel and go right here. I've actually honed this one up to about 8,000, so it's mirror finish on there. It's not necessary, but you get a little cleaner cut. All right.
How long do they last?
Forever. I mean, I've had this for 15 years. And every, half a dozen guitars, I'll go hone it again and right back in business.
It's not sharp, is it, Robbie?
Well,
is it actually sharp?
Yeah, you can.
You actually put an edge on it?
Not like a bevel, but I mean, not like a secondary bevel, like a chisel or a hand plane. But when I grind it, I grind that hone, off on the sander, and then I hone that up to a mirror finish. So around the edges is what's cutting. Okay. All right. Now, one of the downsides is you can only go about 1/8 inch at a time. So you have to do this in multiple passes. Okay. So it takes a little bit of time. Not a big deal. Also,
Way far down.
can't do that. It doesn't cut very well that way. Now, the farther you get into it, and obviously if I were doing like a classical peg head, it'd be 22 millimeters. The farther I get down in there, there's nowhere for those shavings to go. So you have to get them out of there somewhere. So what I usually do is just pull this guy right here and just hang it on the side of my drill press, and every pass I come in and blow those shavings out. Okay, so here we go. If you guys want to step in here and see this, you're welcome to do that. One of the cool things is you can get right up here next to it. And it's not going to hurt you or anything like that unless you're wearing a necktie. And then if you're wearing a necktie, I probably wouldn't get real close to it.
Wearing a necktie a lot while you're down here.
All the time. Tuxedo in my shop. It's just like a little sewing machine, cuts that thing right out. Make sure you keep it moving. Don't let it stop. You can get a little flat spot there. And then to get rid of the chips, there we go. Yep. And then I can go on my drill press about 1/3 of a turn. And then I'm back into it again. benefit to this is it cuts going forward and in reverse. However, sometimes you'll find the grain of the wood will require you to go one way or the other. There we go. Cuts just like a little sewing machine. Nice and clean. Of course, I'm just using some old spruce here. Occasionally, on your last cut, you get a little chip out there. So I've found that if I hold the pieces together as I'm making that final cut, it works a little better. Also, I've been known to glue a piece of veneer to the top side, make a clean cut, take it over my joiner, waste the veneer away, and then right back into the rosewood. Okay? But that works pretty slick for cutting out nice little patterns like that.
How often do you sharpen it?
Every 6 or 8 guitars. Yeah. Works pretty good. Drill press router.
Cool.
Good?
Nice.
Do we need the theme music again to remind us?
Tracy, get it.
I'm kidding, Tracy. All right, let's go back over to the other table here and we'll hit the other top. The next one that is a very popular Luthier Tips du Jour video is called the Poor Man's Hygrometer. Anybody seen that one? Poor Man's Hygrometer. Basically what you do is you just take the cutoffs from your soundboards, the end grain down here. So there's a whole bunch of end grain coming through here. And you take that and you glue a piece of veneer to it. Now I've used epoxy or CA glue or something on here to glue that veneer on, so I didn't introduce any moisture to it. This one was glued up at 42% relative humidity. Are we at 42% today? No, we're drier. So that thing is tipped over. If it were getting too humid, it would go the other way. Now, does this tell you what the humidity is? No. But if you have some way to calibrate this, some guys make these fancy, hangers for it, and they put little notches on there like a sundial and stuff. It's very accurate. This one was glued up at 29%. Check my hygrometers over there. What's the one there in the windowsill?
31%.
The one in the windowsill is the most accurate. 31%. So that's a 2% difference. Let's see that thing move just a little bit there. If it went to 31, it'd be standing straight up. So what does this help you do? The rumor is that Antonio Torres, the father of the modern day classical guitar, had something similar in his shop. And in Spain where he was working, there were wide swings in relative humidity. And one of those areas was the optimum glue up time. And so if you make one of these at optimum glue up time, not too dry and not too humid, you just look at your wall, and if that thing's standing straight up or very close to it, you know it's time to go to work. Do your glue ups at that. So I call that the poor man's hygrometer. And they're very accurate, work very well. I keep a couple in my shop. I clamp them to that conduit pipe over there and just look at them occasionally and see what's going on in the shop. Poor man's hygrometer. Theme song, music? No, I'm kidding. Just keep him on record over there or play. All right, the next one that is a very popular one is pore filling. And I've used all the methods that are out there. Anything you can think of, I've used. One of my favorite ones is shellac and sawdust. Anybody ever tried the shellac and sawdust pore fill method? No? It's fantastic. First of all, you don't have to worry about your color match, because a lot of your pore fillers don't match the species of wood you're using. And so I'm going to do a little test piece today on a cutout from an East Indian rosewood back. And what you're going to do is the sawdust, basically a pore filler is a resin and a binding agent. And for the resin, I'm going to use sawdust, but it's not any kind of sawdust, it's end grain sawdust. So when I make it, I use this end grain down here, not the face grain or the edge grain. I just go over to my sander, I wrap a piece of newspaper around my dust port, grind the end grain on there. It's a very, very fine powder. And I collect that fine powder and I put it into a nice little salt or spice type shaker like this. And that's your resin. The binding agent I'm going to use is shellac. And it's not any kind of shellac. It's a 1 pound cut of shellac. Now if it's super blonde or orange or garnet or whatever, I don't think that particularly matters. But the 1 pound cut of shellac is sticky enough that it holds the resin or the sawdust in your pores, but it doesn't get too sticky. Okay? So this is a very simple method. I love using this on Spanish cedar or mahogany. It's a great pore fill for a neck. So what I'm going to do is take my super high-tech Luthier cotton balls here. You cannot get these at any store. They have to be Luthier cotton balls. If not, they don't work. Killing me, Karen. I dump a little bit of the resin on here, in this case the end grain sawdust. I then come in with the Luthier cotton ball. Put a little bit on there. You want to work on the dry side. If you work too wet, you create a sticky mess. We have to sand this. The more aggressive you get with the sanding, the easier it is to pull that back out of the pores. So just take a little bit and just work it into the grain there. Don't be shy, come on up. It's not like the dolphin show at SeaWorld, you won't get wet. That was a good one, right?
That was really,
They get better, they get better.
What do you think about that, Karen?
that was a good one. Credit.
I think the swimming pool heroin was pretty good. That was pretty good, yeah.
Opened up that bottle of Everclear, everybody likened up.
You guys weren't here earlier when I told the swimming pool hair joke. I was in Brazil teaching this past year and had 20 students in the shop and had a loft in it. And I'm going to add just a little more dust and a little more shellac. I don't want to work too wet now. And some guys would go up in the loft, they'd look down and take pictures and all that kind of stuff. And one guy goes up and says, "Hey, one of the cool things about being up here is you can tell who's going bald." He says, "O'Brien, for example, he's got swimming pool hair." I said, "Swimming pool hair? What the hell is swimming pool hair?" He said, "It's full, but you can see the bottom." It's better the second time around, isn't it?
I gotta do something to throw you a bone once in a while.
There we go. Now, how fast does shellac dry?
Very.
Very. Yeah. So this is another plus to this method. If you're using epoxy or some other type of oil-based or pore fill like that, you're looking at overnight dry time at least. Your oil-based, sometimes you're looking at days. This dries real quick. So if you're in a hurry to get into your spray booth or apply whatever type of finish you're going to apply, this is a great choice for your pore fill. It dries almost instantly, especially if you have a fan next to your bench.
What about shrink back, Ron?
It does shrink back a little bit. Yep.
Keep going.
You need 2 or 3 applications at least. But the good news is it's very quick. You can put in 2 or 3 applications in an hour. Any pore fill, you're going to need 2 or 3 applications. This is my experience. All right, so then I come in and lightly sand. I'm just going to use some 320 here. Emphasis on the word lightly because you don't want to get too aggressive and pull it back out of the pores. Now, if you got happy with your shellac as you were using that, you've left swirl marks and all kinds of buildup on there, which you don't want to do. That's already just a few passes with the sandpaper, it's nice and clean. So now I take this over and blow all the dust off with the air compressor, right? No, use the dust to your advantage. We're trying to get dust in the pores, right? I probably still have enough moisture in here from my shellac. So I'll come back in here again. And once again, apply a little bit of shellac. That's my binding agent. Don't need much. You don't want to get too sticky. Have I said that you don't want to get it too sticky? I don't think I've said that yet, have I?
Say it again.
Hey, yeah, okay. So for those that didn't get it the first time, you don't want to get too sticky because then you have to get aggressive with your sandpaper and you just pull it right back out of the pores. Now, if you're using a high solids finish, urethanes, polyesters, lacquers in some case, usually just a couple rounds of the pore fill and you're good to go. You can count on your finish doing a little bit of leveling as well. But if I'm doing like a French polish over this, I do 3 or 4 applications probably.
Does everything stick to shellac?
Everything, yeah. Yep. I haven't had a problem with anything not sticking to shellac. Okay. So once it dries again, you can lightly hit it. And if you were washing your hair, this would be called the rinse and repeat stage. So you just rinse and repeat. And if you guys want to pass that around and look in the light, you can look at this area I didn't do. You can see the craters for pores. You can see this is nice and level. And then your You go right into your spray booth at that point, or whatever finish you put over the top. So very quick, very easy. No problem with the color match or anything like that. You always have scrap laying around from the species of wood that you used.
So is the rinse and repeat the same if you have swimming pool hair?
If you have swimming pool hair, the rinse and repeat could probably be about the same. Yeah.
Forget
Just-
to repeat.
Yeah, don't forget to repeat.
So after 2 or 3 applications,
Usually good enough.
minimum shrink back to
Yep.
get a good flat finish.
Yep. And you're not introducing any moisture, so you really should have no problem with grain raising or anything like that.
Why end grain dust is just.
Very, very fine.
That's,
Yeah, if you stick your finger in this, you'll see it's a very fine powder. So it gets down inside there. It's not like the fibers coming off the face grain or the edge grain. Great stuff.
How much do you need for a guitar? Like,
That'll do a whole guitar easy. Yeah, that's just a little bit. That'd probably be 2 or 3 guitars. Doesn't take very much at all. So that's one of my favorite methods of pore filling. I love that pore filling method. Very quick, very easy. You always have stuff laying around.
Have you ever tried using something other than the dust from that wood, like
Sure,
maybe putting ebony on here if you really
Sure.
want to get,
works fine.
you got some lighter.
Yep. I've used Spanish cedar on mahogany on Spanish cedar. Of course, those are very similar anyway. But yeah, if you wanted to go with a walnut on rosewood or ebony, yeah, sure, whatever. All right, any questions about pore filling? Moving right along. So that shellac and sawdust is my favorite method. It's one of the most requested questions that I have about my YouTube videos. But that transitions into the next one, which is finishing. Oh my gosh, I get a lot of emails about finishing. What's your favorite finish? What do you put on this wood? What do you put on that wood? What do you prefer for tone? And of course, you know, there's a bunch of different opinions out there about what guys prefer. Anyway, we don't need to talk about types of finishes, although I do want to talk about one type of finish in particular today. And that's a new product I've been testing called Royal Lac. I don't know if, how many of you guys are on my chat group? You guys on my chat group? Nobody?
Yes, of course.
Oh, Karen. Yeah. And Tracy, you're on there. I run a private Google chat group for students of mine around the world. And the subject of finishing comes up all the time. And recently a guy contacted me that makes a product called Royal Lac. It's shellac-based finish with synthetic resins in it. Urethane, I think is what it is. Don't quote me on that. But basically, who's ever heard of the U-Butte hard shellac? Anybody ever tried that product and used that? I think you've used it a few times.
That's on that guitar.
That's on that guitar, yeah. Some of the problems that the hard shellac was having is crazing or checking. And so they came in and put a plasticizer in it. Plasticizer is just that. It makes it look like plastic and keeps it from crazing or checking. Although the maker of this product, who happens to be a chemist, has told me that a plasticizer is a Band-Aid, because eventually it evaporates out of your finish and then you're left with your original problem, which is checking and crazing. So he's invented this product, and since he's a chemist, he told me that he has a very strong chemical bond between the shellac and the synthetic resins, so there's no plasticizers needed. And that allows you to, it's a little easier to apply, it flows a little better than a finish with a plasticizer, and it also helps with the checking and crazing, according to him, will not happen. And it's shellac based, so it still looks like shellac. And so I've been, over the past several months, doing some sample boards, and you're welcome to look at these. I did all of these sample boards. One of them was sprayed, and don't ask me which one. Sprayed, brushed, wiped on, and then French polished. So I checked all of those application methods. I did them all. They were great. And then a few months ago I thought, well, what about repairability issues? So then I went in and damaged them all. Sanded through them, put dings in them, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm bringing them back for the second round. And a couple of these I've already finished. This is one here where it was done, and then I just leveled and buff it like a lacquer. I just wet sand it and then buff it on my buffing wheel. It's resistant enough because of the synthetic resins that it withstands the heat. It's scratch resistant, dent resistant, that kind of stuff. And so I've been fiddling with this finish over the last several months, and so far I'm impressed. Eventually I'm going to make a video about it on a maple classical guitar I'm finishing up. But you guys are welcome to pass these things around. I think only 1 or 2 of them have been buffed out officially since I did my damaging and stuff.
All of this was with that new product?
Yes.
And where do you get this, Robbie?
It's called Royal Lac, shellacfinishes.com. Anyway, the guy sent me a code several weeks ago that I put on my forum and said, hey, if anybody's interested in buying this, give them this code and they get a discount. So if you're interested in trying it, you get a discount.
How is it with buildup? In other words, normal number of coats for shellac, less?
It's a 2-pound cut, equivalent to a 2-pound cut. So it builds pretty consistent.
What's a,
You know, I don't remember, maybe 20, 25 bucks.
and that does,
You could do probably 2 or 3 guitars with this, easy. Yeah.
How many coats?
Until you're happy. You know, if you want it to look like lacquer, keep going. If you want it to look really, really thin, just wipe.
How about your shiny one there?
This one right here, I probably did maybe 6 or 8, and this one, I remember, it was wiped on. I made just a big ball, I put a bunch of t-shirt material in another t-shirt, and just wiped it on like that. I'd wait 10 or 15 minutes, wipe on another one, and then the next day I leveled it with like 320 or 400, and wiped on another 3 or 4 coats. That's it. So, and you can see the grain, you know, like a typical lacquer top that shrunk back because it's shrunk back a little bit. But if you want to look at that, that's ready to level and buff out. But that's how smooth I got it to go on, just by wiping it on there.
And that's without a pore filter filler?
Yeah, on spruce there's no pore fill.
Right.
Yeah, there's no grain. I
so
thought,
the typical application is like you do French polish, you've got the linen and you got the
And this
little
is unbuffed.
cheesecloth.
that's
and all
unbuffed,
that.
yeah. Well, I didn't do like a French polish. I just dipped it in there and went, whoosh, that was
But I
it.
mean, that's what would be used to apply it.
Yeah,
Same thing?
sure.
But not, you don't have to do the circles?
No, I just patted it on there. You can brush it as well. You can spray it. I mean, whatever you want to do.
You spray straight out of the,
You can. Yeah, spray it right out of there. Now you're gonna have a lot more waste, obviously. So, and you got, you clean up your gun and all that kind of stuff. I prefer just brush it or wipe it on there. But so far, I'm very impressed with it. And it gives you the durability of a synthetic resin,
And it's
but the
sort of
look of a shellac.
On its own? I mean, you have to sand
Well,
in between. but-
Yeah. If you look at that one right there, that was, several coats on one day and then leveled with 320 or 400.
Right.
And then I wiped on a few more coats, and that's it. And now all I have to do is just hit it with like some 1,000 grit and then buff it on my wheel.
What do you thin that with?
Just alcohol.
Are you?
Yeah, and I use Everclear.
So you are thinning it, using it just like a lacquer?
Well, if it comes on a 2-pound cut, I'm just going to wipe it on. It's right out of the jar.
Right.
If I'm going to French polish it, I bump it down to 1 pound just by doubling the amount of alcohol. That's it. Royal Lac. I think it's shellacfinishes.net or .com. Send me an email, I'll let you know. And if you're actually interested in purchasing, he'll offer you a discount or something. So, okay. This is not meant to be an advertisement, by the way. I'm just putting out information there for you guys. I'm impressed with the product so far.
Oh, you have a no solicitor sign upstairs. So.
It doesn't work.
do you always recommend Everclear over denatured alcohol?
I do. Your denatured alcohol from your hardware store variety is full of water and other bad news stuff. Your industrial strength denatured alcohol, which is what he uses to make this product, is 95% pure alcohol, and that's about as pure as you can get.
And it's about a third more than the Everclear.
Yeah, it's pretty pricey. Now the Everclear, because we live in Colorado, I can get it very easily. I just go to my local liquor store and buy that. And that's why I use my French polish stuff. The denatured stuff gives me a headache. It's bad news stuff. So I don't like it. Okay. All right, any questions about finishes? That was that number 4 already? Holy cow.
Yeah,
Man, I'm just going through these things.
more jokes.
Who's got the joke of the day? Anybody bring a joke with them today?
Drink,
You already had the
eat
joke of the
food.
day.
No more jokes?
Where do you
Man.
get your shellac from?
Got it twice.
Where do I get my shellac? I usually buy it from LMI.
The lightest stuff.
This is the stuff I have over there. Actually, this right here is the medium dark or medium blonde. Usually what I use. Now, I like the garnet as well on Indian rosewood, but on my tops, usually the medium blonde. Okay. Alrighty. Questions? No? Let's move right along. The last one. Then we get into the belly dancers. The last one that people really talk about is how to cut your binding channels. And usually the topic that comes up is how to do it by hand. And so I thought I would do a quick little demonstration of just how to cut a binding channel by hand and talk about the tool that I use. This is called a Grammel, and I get this from LMI. Does anybody cut their binding channels by hand?
When I was a kid,
No?
turned out like shit.
What are you guys using? What are you guys using these days? Just your standard binding cutting machines?
Yeah, overhead router.
Overhead routers, yeah.
I use a router, lamb trim, but by hand.
The laminate trimmer, tilt base or not?
I just eyeball it.
Right. You're doing Ukes though, right?
Both.
Both, okay. Yeah, I've done the laminate trimmer, I've done the popsicle stick under the laminate trimmer, I've done it all. When I was in Spain studying with Romanitas, we had to do everything by hand. About the only tool he had in his shop was about a 50-year-old drill press there, and so everything else was done by hand. And so what I used was a Gremel. And there's a little trick you can do to this thing to make it so you can use it for both top and side. And I'll start, in fact, let me just show you the blade before I even start here. All right, Tracy, you may want to come in close for this. All you guys may want to come in close for this. Let's do a group hug. What do you guys say? Just get it out of the way, do a group hug. I'm kidding you. All right, so they send you a piece of metal like that. It's square on this end, and this end comes pre-honed with two little bevels like that. However, they're not honed very well. They're just ground. And so I take the time to hone that up to about an 8,000. So it's got a bevel on each side. That way you can go forward and reverse, right? And that's the way I cut the top along here. Now the side is usually in mahogany or rosewood or something like that. That it's hard enough, it usually doesn't like to take just a small straight line like that without wandering a little bit. So on this side, and I learned this trick from Romanitas, I'd like to say it's mine, but it's not, is I just grind an angle on the end of that and leave it full thickness. And I use this edge like a scraper. So I'll come in and I'll put it in my Gremel and just scrape. And so it's scraping on the side of my rosewood a nice, bold, thick line. Okay? Now, you can go ahead and cut all as deep as you want this way, and then cut, scrape all the way as you want this way, and usually peel those off in just one square piece. Or you can scrape a little bit, chisel a little bit, scrape a little bit, chisel a little bit. Doesn't matter. So, let me start just by setting this thing up again, and I'll show you how I do this.
Now, where do you get that?
This is from LMI.
Okay.
Do you still use this on the tops,
Sure.
even if you're using an overhead router to minimize
Good
error?
question. Yeah, a lot of guys run the Gremel around the top just to minimize chip out from your router.
So you do that first and then do the router?
Yep, so you set this up to your binding specs.
Sort of thing?
Yeah, set it up for your binding specs and then just run it around the top. Now, if you have a guitar top, in fact, why don't you hand me one of those plexiglass templates off the wall there, please? Here's a piece of spruce, let's pretend. If you're running around your top, you can't just get in there and just run around your top. Because in some areas you're going out of the grain, some areas you're going into the grain. For example, here, this way I would want to run this way I would want to run that way. That way I'm always going out of the grain, because if I just do like this, I could chatter and tear out on the parts where I'm going into the grain. Okay, same thing as when you're cutting your binding channels or you're cutting your rosette out, your sound hole and all that kind of stuff. So let's pretend that that's my binding depth this way, right? And then you also want to set this up that way. So you just come in there. Notice it has a rounded edge, so you can turn this thing around and get in your waist area, right? But I usually just use this side of my gradual sloping areas, like around the lower bout or something. Just come in here like this. And just slowly work your way down to the depth you want. Now, like I said, you don't have to go all the way to the complete depth to begin with. You can stop there and then come around the side and make your line on the side, and then chisel a little bit, and then come in and score some more, whatever you want to do. One thing I do recommend is this Gremel has an area here that's sharp like that. See that? So come in and put a piece of tape over that. Sometimes that'll mark up your top, depending if that's the downside. That's probably good enough for demonstration purposes. Now, for the other end, swap this out. Why are we whispering? I don't know. Everybody whisper. Okay, so for the next step. Okay. All right, so that little tip now is going to work like a scraper. And you come in here. Actually, you probably should set it a little deeper. Yeah, let me go just a little bit deeper. So just so it's like an actual binding.
Is that a particularly hardwood, softwood, medium?
Spanish cedar is not real hard. It's not as hard as rosewood, obviously.
It's lighter than mahogany, right, a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's actually considered a hardwood, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a soft hard.
Yeah, it's a soft hardwood. Yeah. All right, so here we go.
Like a false positive.
And sometimes you just got to work at it, find the correct angle. Let's see that little ribbon come off of there? See that? Can you see that, Tracy? See the little ribbon come off of there?
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty? And you can just scrape right on into that depth there. And it looks like I've bottomed out close to it. So see, it just scrapes off nice little ribbons there. And if you look at the side now, you've not got a nice bold line of where your binding needs to be. Okay, so then you come in with your super high-tech Luthier chisel. Some people like to use a mortising chisel because you get a nice wide piece there to work with. Now you just kind of come in and do what you need to do to get rid of this stuff. And it should just peel right off of there. Sometimes in full little pieces like that. See that? I didn't cut all the way out there to the ends. I'll just break it off.
Shoulder plane might work pretty good too.
Shoulder plane would work, sure. Now you got to remember though, you got contours, right? But it makes a nice little channel there. And with a little quality time spent with your chisel, you now have a channel there. You can come in and install your bindings. Now if you're doing a step channel, like with an OEM, you've got smaller perfings or something on a steel string guitar, you can still do it. Just start with your smaller one and then come in and do your deeper one. So. But anyway, it's a nice way of doing it by hand. It's therapeutic, good for the soul. If you got an extra day on your hands. Right?
Have you ever filled the side up with like a white purfling or something just to create like a fake binding look?
You could do that as well. Yeah, I'm just making your channel deeper to compensate for that extra stuff in there. When I was in Spain, I think I did the top bindings in the morning. Came back, did in the afternoon, did the back bindings. So it took me a day to do this step, something that would take you an hour or two if you just had your laminate trimmer. You could install them very quickly. But, a cool way of doing things. I find myself using this more and more. Cutaways, for example. Sometimes you can't get in there really tight with your routers. Do it by hand. Why not? Works really good. Any questions about that? No? Alrighty, well, that has covered the top 5 things on my Luthier Tips du Jour. And we still have time left for the belly dancers. We've got some things to eat and drink over here that provided by Karen. Thank you very much, Karen.
Sure.
And so the next half hour, 45 minutes or so, we can talk shop. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions about perhaps things that I've discussed today, or you just want to shoot the breeze about anything Luthier related. Now's the time. So let's do it. There you go. Nice. All right. Speaking of fish glue, Karen has a little fish glue story that she can share with us. So, Karen, go ahead.
Sakes. I was just gluing up a fretboard on my neck. It was like my second guitar or something like that. And the entire lid came off and the entire bottle of it went inside the guitar. So I panicked kind of trying to get it out of there anyway. So the inside of the guitar is like shellac lined with fish glue, and now all the cats are like, How about if I just sit by this guitar all day long? So anyway.
I remember that day
An
well.
entire bottle went inside there. I think that was the first day I met your wife too.
Yeah.
And she was like, wow, that woman's freaking out. I'm like, get me some paper towels.